Cowboys Nation. Let's jump right into the latest updates surrounding America's team. Today, we're covering some key storylines you don't want to miss, the latest on Malik Hooker's toe injury, where things stand with a potential Tyler Smith contract extension, and the mystery behind why Jaden Blue and a few of the young talents were inactive in Week 1. First up, Malik Hooker. He was listed with a toe issue during Monday's walkthrough. Now, reports are calling it nothing more than soreness, so no need to hit the panic button just yet. If he takes a rest day on Wednesday, that wouldn't be unusual, especially for veterans early in the week. The real signs to watch will be Thursday's and Friday's reports. As of now, the Cowboys believe he should be good to go, and after his strong Week 1 performance, that's great news for the defense. Backhand index pointing right. But before we dive into more Cowboys news, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss the latest updates. Let's move on to the new news. Now, shifting focus, what about the long-term picture? Tyler Smith's contract extension talks are beginning to generate buzz. Dallas clearly sees him as one of their cornerstone pieces on the offensive line. On top of that, fans were left questioning why Jaden Blue and a couple of other young names didn't suit up in Week 1. Will Week 2 be different? That's something we'll be watching closely. Now, let's talk about Jaden Blue, one of the most surprising storylines from Week 1. Despite being healthy, he didn't see the field. That caught a lot of fans off guard, especially since his name never appeared on the injury report. Head coach Brian Schottenheimer shed some light on the decision. His message was clear: talent alone isn't enough. The Cowboys demand daily consistency, and even one step back in practice can cost a player his spot on game day. Schottenheimer emphasized that this roster is stacked with competition, and every rep in practice matters. He even pointed to Tyler Booker as an example: not perfect, but reliable. Coaches know what they'll get from him every single day, and that reliability earns playing time. For players like Blue, the expectation is simple: prove it every week, every practice. Now the big question is whether this tough love sparks a turnaround. Will Blue and the other young players fight their way back into the lineup for Week 2, or will they remain on the sidelines? The answer will come down to how they respond in the coming days. Consistency, that's the word that keeps coming up when it comes to Jaden Blue. The Cowboys staff has made it clear: talent alone won't earn you snaps, you've got to prove it day in and day out. That's exactly why his absence in Week 1 wasn't just surprising, it was telling. The message from Brian Schottenheimer was pretty straightforward: Blue hasn't been consistent enough. It doesn't mean the team has lost faith in him, but it does suggest some level of frustration with his development. Coaches want to see a player who not only flashes talent but also stacks good practices together. Now, will we see him in Week 2? That's still uncertain. Jerry Jones even weighed in, and in classic Jerry fashion, his comments didn't exactly clear things up. He left the door wide open, basically saying, "We'll see." That doesn't sound like a strong endorsement, but it also doesn't close the chapter. Here's the reality: the Cowboys want Blue to succeed. They want him to seize the opportunity. But it's up to him to turn this setback into motivation, to respond on the practice field, and to force the coach's hands. Week 2 could be his chance, but only if he shows he's ready. One thing to always remember: the Cowboys coaching staff sees more than anyone else. They're with these players every single day, so naturally they've got the best feel for who's ready and who isn't. But let's be honest, the NFL isn't always a true meritocracy. Veterans are often given more leeway, while younger guys have to fight harder to prove themselves. That's why this isn't just about Jaden Blue. When Brian Schottenheimer emphasized consistency, it sounded like a message directed to multiple young players who were inactive in Week 1. The bottom line? This roster is loaded, and Dallas isn't going to hand out playing time. It has to be earned, and it has to be consistent. The real challenge for these young Cowboys now is whether they can rise to that standard. For some, Week 1 was a reality check. For others, it might be the spark they need to lock in and prove they belong on the field. Either way, the coaching staff is making one thing crystal clear: reliability beats raw talent every single time. 4 young players were inactive for the Cowboys in Week 1, Jaden Blue, Ajani Cornelius, Mazi Smith, and Shamar James. While Cornelius may have simply fallen victim to the numbers game, the situation with Mazi Smith is far more concerning. Smith was a surprise scratch in the opener, and Jerry Jones didn't do him any favors with his comments earlier this week. On his radio appearance, Jones hinted that Smith might be inactive once again in Week 2. That's not the type of vote of confidence you want to hear, especially when the coaching staff keeps stressing the need for consistency. Brian Schottenheimer's message to young players has been clear: practice habits translate to playing time. But when the owner is already suggesting a player won't suit up, it raises serious questions about where Smith stands in the eyes of the organization. It's early, but let's be real, this is not the developmental path Dallas envisioned for Smith. If he doesn't find his footing soon, the Taco Charlton comparisons will only get louder, and that's the last thing Cowboys fans want to see. Being a healthy scratch once is one thing. But when it stretches across multiple games, it becomes a serious concern. With key players set to return from injured reserve, the pressure only grows for Mazi Smith, because roster spots don't stay open forever. Right now, he's not just fighting for playing time, he's fighting to stay in the mix. And it's not only Smith under the spotlight. Shamar James may also be one of the players Brian Schottenheimer was hinting at when he spoke about consistency issues. James didn't suit up in Week 1, while Buddy Johnson got the nod on special teams. That decision says a lot about where the coaching staff feels James stands at the moment. So here's the real question: who makes it back to the active roster first, Jaden Blue, Mazi Smith, or Shamar James? Each of them has the talent, but talent isn't enough in Dallas. The standard is higher, and right now the young guys are being tested. Meanwhile, away from the inactive list, the Cowboys front office is turning its attention to the future. Contract talks for Tyler Smith are beginning to surface, and Stephen Jones has already shared his thoughts. He made it clear that there's no hard deadline: if a deal gets done mid-season, that's fine. What matters most is making sure the franchise secures its young cornerstone on the offensive line. When it comes to Tyler Smith, the Cowboys front office is sending a clear message: there's no rush, but securing him long-term is absolutely on their radar. Stephen Jones explained that while players are encouraged to keep their focus on football during the season, the team isn't opposed to striking a deal if the timing works out. And he's right: many players and their agents prefer to hit pause once the games begin, betting on themselves to increase their value with another strong season. That's a common strategy around the league. The key takeaway? Dallas isn't behind schedule. As long as a new deal for Tyler Smith is finalized before free agency in 2026, the Cowboys are right on track. Of course, fans would love to see it wrapped up sooner rather than later, but the franchise isn't panicking. Smith is viewed as one of the foundational pieces on the offensive line, and the Cowboys fully intend to keep him in Dallas for years to come. It's just a matter of when the two sides decide the time is right. When you look around the league, it's clear that Tyler Smith's future contract will come with a heavy price tag. The guard market has already climbed to massive numbers, and once Smith gets his extension, it's only going higher. That's the challenge Dallas faces. Right now, players like Chris Lindstrom are setting the bar with nearly $50 million in guarantees, but by the time Smith's deal is finalized, that figure could look outdated. The Cowboys know how quickly the market can reset: one breakout season from another young lineman, and suddenly the price skyrockets. Here's where Smith stands today: his current deal covers him through 2026, with a franchise tag projected around $30 million after that. Add it up, and you're talking about well over $50 million in guaranteed money if the Cowboys take the long route. So, what does a realistic extension look like? The minimum expectation is that Dallas will have to clear the $55 million mark in guarantees, and likely push closer to $70 million to lock Smith in for the long haul. It's a massive investment, but that's the cost of securing one of the NFL's most promising young offensive linemen. When you break down the numbers, the cost of keeping Tyler Smith becomes even clearer. If Dallas waits too long and ends up tagging him, the annual figure could hover around $25 million per season. With the salary cap continuing to climb, that type of price tag isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. In fact, the Cowboys could be staring at something close to a 4-year, $100 million deal if the market keeps trending upward. That's the reality of locking down elite young linemen in today's NFL. Every new contract pushes the bar higher. The real sticking point, however, may not be the total value but the structure. Dallas has a history of keeping the fully guaranteed portion lower than other teams, as we've seen with players like Darren Bland and Jake Ferguson. That approach saves cap flexibility, but it can also complicate negotiations when a player and his agent are pushing for top-of-the-market security. For Smith, that balance between guaranteed money and overall value is likely what will determine how quickly a deal gets done.